Today's lesson is on rounding. A rounded number has the same value as the number you start with, but it's less exact. You can use rounding to estimate, to guesstimate, to try to come close to an answer. You're not looking for the exact answer, but you're looking for somewhere close. An example would be if you're shopping and you knew that something was $9.99, you say to yourself, well, that's pretty close to $10. You can say that that price is about $10. And if you wanted to get two items at $9.99, rather than adding $9.99 twice, it's a lot easier to just round up to the number 10 and do 10 twice and say, oh, that's $20. So that's one example of the way we can use rounding. It isn't exact, but it has about the same value. You can read my example, 341, rounded to the nearest hundred, meaning we want to know, is it closer to 300 or 400? We're talking about the hundreds place. If I say 341, I know that it is not quite 350, which is half between 300 and 400. So I know that 341 is going to be closer to 300. When rounding to the nearest dollar, like in the example that I said, $1.89 turns into $2 because $1.89 is a lot closer to $2 than it is to $1. So here's some general rules for rounding. If you're rounding and the number that comes after it is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, you round the number up. So for example, 38 rounded to the nearest 10 is 40. 38 is a lot closer to 40 than it is to 30. If the number you're rounding is followed by 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, you round the number down. So 33 rounded to the nearest 10 is 30. 30 is a lot closer to 33 than it is to 40. So let's say I have the number 57. So 50 and 7, the two tens in the tens place I'm using would be 50 and 60. 57, what do you think it's closer to? And this number is 5 or higher, so it's closest to 60. What are you rounding to? When rounding a number, you need to ask, what are you rounding to? Numbers can be rounded to the nearest 10, 100, thousands, and so on. So if we look at 4,827, if I round it to the nearest 10, which is this number right here, I want to know if I'm going to be rounding it to 4,820 or 4,830, because this is the number I'm looking at. That doesn't look very well. So I am going to round it to 30. The same number, 4,827 rounded to the nearest 100. So I'm looking at the 8. 27 is a lot closer to 800 than it is 900, because I would want to know, am I going to do 4800 or 4900? And 27 sure is a lot closer to 800 than it is to 900. That's not a very good 9 either. Again, the thousands, so I'm looking at this right here. The nearest thousand is 5,000, because 4,827 is a lot closer to 5,000 than it is to 4,000. All the numbers to the right of the place you are rounding become zeros. So here's some more examples. 34 rounded to the nearest 10 is 30. 6,809 to the nearest hundred is 6,800. 1,951 rounded to the nearest thousand is 2,000. In this way, 26 and 5/10 rounded to the nearest even number would be 26. It would be rounded down. And 77 and 5/10 rounded to the nearest even number would be 78. It would be rounded up. Rounding in fractions works exactly the same way as rounding as whole numbers. The only difference is that instead of rounding to tens, hundreds, thousands, and so on, you round to tenths, hundreds, thousands, and so on. So you can see my examples there. 7 and 8,199 10,000ths rounded to the nearest tenth is the 8. I look at this number right here. 1 is smaller than 5, so I keep it at 7 and 8/10. 1 and 621 10,000ths rounded to the nearest hundred. So I'm looking at this place right here. That's where I want to round. I see that this number 2 is smaller than 5, so it stays at 1 and 6/100. 3 and 8,792 thousandths rounded to the nearest thousandths. So I want to look at this number right here. It is rounded to this number right here. Okay. To avoid getting confused in rounding with long decimals, all you have to do is look in the place that you're rounding to and the number that follows it. For example, this super big number right here, you don't need to worry about all of them. If I'm rounding it to the nearest hundredth, all I have to do, which the hundredth is the 8 right here, the only number that I really care about is what follows it. So that would be this 2. That's the only number. The rest of these, I don't really care because we're just rounding it to the hundredth place. So we easily round that number to 5 and 38/100. So take out your journal, your math notebook, scratch paper, whatever you're using, and I'd like you to take a few minutes to round these numbers. All right, so my first example, 5 and 33/100. I want you to round that to the nearest tenth. So the number you're going to be looking at is this number right here. That will tell you, do you round up or down? Going with the rules, 5 and higher, you round up. 4 and lower, you round down. I'll give you a second to think about it. If you wrote down 5.3, that's the answer. That's the correct number. 3 is smaller than 5, so the number stays the same. 62 and 77/100. If we're rounding to the nearest whole number, okay? So these are actually the numbers that you look at to determine what your nearest whole number to the left of the decimal will be. So think to yourself, is this number going to be closer to 62 or 63? If you wrote down 63, you are correct because 77 is a lot closer to the next number than it is to going down. 77 is more than 50, so we're going to round up. 38, if we round it to the nearest hundredth, not the nearest hundredths, the nearest 10, you're going to ask yourself, is this number going to be between 30 and 40? So again, what's the number that we look at to determine? We look at this number 8. 38 is a whole lot closer to 40 than it is to 30, so we would round it to 40. And 411, if we're rounding it to the nearest hundred, rounding it to whatever this number would be. Write down what you're going to round it to. If you're thinking about the two possible hundreds it could be, I hope that you're saying 400 and 500. What would 411 be closer to? If you said 400, then you are correct, and that's the absolute answer. Rounding and sums can make things easy. Just as I said in my opener about something costing $9.99, here's a couple of examples. You're at a grocery store and you're picking up these things with the following prices. Something for $2.25, something for 88 cents, something for $2.69. So instead of adding all those numbers up in your head, you could do a quick rounding. So $2.25, you could simply make that $2 because $2.25 is pretty close to 2. And 25 is less than 50, so we go down. 88 cents, that's pretty darn close to $1. Because again, using the rule of 5 or higher, 50 cents is halfway, 88 cents is higher than 5, and it certainly would go close to $1. And then $2.69, again, using 5 as our midpoint, 69 is higher than 50 cents, so that would turn into $3. So now we can easily add $2 plus $1 plus $3, which would make about $6. You are pretty close to the exact number of $5.82 if we added it all together. You would know you would for sure need at least $6 to buy these groceries. In finding a sum, it's quickest to round the numbers before adding them. Some people prefer 5 to the nearest even number, and a lot of times half of the time 5 will be rounded up, half the time it'll be rounded down. But here at Olson, if it's 5 or higher, we will be rounding up. So you can keep these things in mind as we work on our rounding lessons. As always, if you have any questions, please talk to me or Mr. Hauer, Ms. McFarlane, or Mrs. Lau. You can always go back and watch this video again. Hopefully this will make rounding easy for you.